Welcome back to Saber Spotlight, where we cover Sauhegan's weekly events and highlights from after-school activities and sports and important events. I'm Sam Corbett.
And I'm Emma Williams. Let's take a look at this past week. This week, we interviewed Steve Dreher on coverage for Hope for Gus.
Hope for Gus is a foundation to raise money and awareness for kids with DMD.
There'll be a football game this Friday and a homecoming dance this Saturday.
Evan Morphia interviewed Steve. Here's what he had to say.
At the beginning of every year, Sauhegan and Hope for Gus Foundation work together to raise funds to help find a cure for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And here's a little more about it.
Okay, so today we are here with Steve Dreher, who is a teacher at Sauhegan High School. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. I'm Steve Dreher. As Morpheus said, I teach English. I teach juniors and seniors. But over my time here at Sauhegan, I've taught pretty much every grade. And I love it. I love the school. It's a great place to work, and probably I hope to go to school.
Great. So who is Gus, and what is your relation to him?
So Gus is my son. He is 14. And he is a young man who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
The Hope for Gus Foundation was started about 6 months after Gus was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy and is around 8 years old now and has been raising money to find a cure ever since.
So I would guess a lot of people don't even know what that is, because I know when he was diagnosed, I didn't know what it was. So I remember I was driving home, my phone rang, I pulled over, I answered it. My wife said, "They think Gus has Duchenne muscular dystrophy," and I was like, "Wow, okay, is that bad?" And it is bad. So it's a muscle wasting disorder. He doesn't produce a protein that preserves the muscles, so his muscles just degrade much more quickly. So sort of, you can imagine accelerating, if you see like a 80-year-old or something, and the way they sort of move more slowly and stuff, their muscles are in similar shape as probably Gus is getting right now. In fact, my mom, who's 80, and Gus share some complaints. Like, it's harder to get up out of a chair, it's harder to get out of bed, you need stability because you don't have the strength to kind of have a good balance and those kind of things. So that was really devastating when that happened, because you don't want to think of your son or daughter suffering.
Of course.
So
when did Hope for Gus start?
Well, so it's an interesting story, and it's a story that many people who have kids, who I now know a lot of people who have kids with Duchenne, share with us, because right about the time that Gus was diagnosed, there really was no treatments at all, and not really even anything in sort of in the pipeline. So many of us have a similar story where the doctor said, there's nothing you can do. Your son is probably going to die in his mid-20s, and you should just go home and love him as best you can. And we were just like, what? That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, and like I say, a lot of the people I know also started foundations, and they had a similar response as my wife Tanya and I, which was like, no, that's not acceptable to us. Pretty much 6 months after Gus was diagnosed, we looked into how do you start. We didn't know how do you start a nonprofit, and what does that even look like. And so then probably within 8 months we had Hope for Gus Foundation. And it's a process to do that. In the meantime, we lived in Francistown, which is a little town nearby. Mm-hmm. The town they threw a huge yard sale, and they didn't really know for what, but they just wanted to support us because they all knew Gus. So we had $1,200.
Oh wow!
And we were like, "What are we gonna do with this $1,200?" We didn't want to use it for our family. We wanted to start moving to supporting research. So that sort of became our primary purpose, is to support research. And Hope for Gus, from the start, has always been to support and facilitate research for a cure. Yeah.
So what are the latest impacts that you've seen the Hope for Gus week at Sauhegan has made for Gus and for other people?
So there's kind of two things, two kind of avenues, and the first is just the fundraising that's happened. 1 year, the sort of most successful year, they raised about $17,000.
Oh wow!
So what we do is we have a kind of a sub account that doesn't go into the Hope for Gus main account, and so this fundraiser kind of supports itself now. So every year they'll buy T-shirts and they'll buy all kinds of things, and then after kind of we do a cost, how much was spent and everything, then they'll usually give us the remaining amount, and we'll leave a little bit in for the following year.
Okay.
And that's kind of how we do it. This week they're going to write me a check for $20,000. So that's fundraising that we are able like put directly into research. And we have, because we've been doing this now for 10 years, we have a lot of contacts, like both in terms of like, we'll contact people and be like, what's the kind of the hottest, like most important thing that's happening? So we have scientific advisors who will tell us that. And then also, people reach out to us sometimes because we've been around long enough that we like I just yesterday got an email from a researcher who's like, this is what we're doing and we're wondering if you could take a look at it. And so that's pretty cool, you know, in terms of, I don't think that the students necessarily see that stuff, which is in a whole other world. But then there's also, I hope, and this is something that I think about a lot, because I know it's like really a privilege that we have students who are so committed to this cause, that it's like a thing that brings the community together. I know that I've seen individual students come to me and say, like, this really had a major impact on me. So my hope is that it also in a way gives back to the Souhegan community, you know. So we've often brought other kids from around, other kids with Duchenne, and I think it's really powerful for these families to see how much this community supports, you know, Gus, but also just how invested it has been in this in fundraising for Duchenne.
Is there any kind of final words or a big message that you want to leave to the Souhegan community about Hope for Gus?
First, I would say, you know, understand that we don't take this for granted, and that we are deeply grateful every single year that this happens. And if, like today, Chris Brooks came up to me and said, that's the last year, I'd say thank you so much. You know, we love you and thank you for all that support. So that's important, I think, because it's amazing, and but we don't take it for granted, and we really appreciate the effort every year. And secondly, as I mentioned to the students yesterday, there is a lot of stuff happening right now in the medical world, and it's going to impact not just Duchenne, which is a genetic disease, but many other diseases that are caused through genetic mutations, and that has to do with gene therapies and CRISPR technologies. And so if ever there's a time to sort of, it's kind of the end of the race, you kind of feel a little bit like, and you got to sprint the last lap or whatever it is, I feel a little bit like I hope we're in that sprint phase, and the finish line is actually, you know, we can sort of see it up there. So I'm hoping we can do that, you know, that people will come out and we can sort of do the sprint, if you will, of trying to really have a really great year and a successful year. And again, we appreciate it so much. So thank you guys.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Remember to come support Hope for Gus and the football team tonight versus Conval.
I'm sitting here with a couple of members of Ethics Forum at Souhegan High School. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Riley Tobin. I'm a senior and I'm a part of the Ethics Forum.
I'm Sarah Burnick. I'm also a senior and I'm part of Ethics Forum too.
So, what role does Ethics Forum play during Hope for Gus Week?
So we've been planning this week during lunch. We've been planning all the events that go on, as well as the festivities that are going on during homecoming on Saturday, which is a new Souhegan tradition. So Ethics Forum has been in charge of everything that you see at the game. We're pretty much setting up. We have bounce houses, cotton candy, t-shirt sales. So we're just getting that all organized.
So how are the sales for t-shirts and homecoming tickets going so far?
Incredible! Especially since we are having our first homecoming, or maybe first in a very long time homecoming. The sales are going really well for that, so we're really excited. And all the proceeds do go to Gus and the Hope for Gus Foundation from that. So.
What does Hope for Gus Week mean to you guys as students here at Souhegan?
I was actually new to Souhegan last year, so I was kind of intimidated, like the second week of school, Hope for Gus Week happening, but everyone was so welcoming and the festivities were amazing, and yeah, it's just a fun week for students and it's for a great cause, so we all get excited about it.
It's a thing for me. I've grown up in the school systems here, and it's just a really great opportunity for the school, Souhegan students, and just the community in general rally around a really good cause, and to just kind of support each other. It's really Souhegan of us to do because we're just really about community, and it just, especially being an ethics forum and being able to plan these things, it really gives you like a really good feeling.
Well, thank you very much, girls. And on behalf of the Ethics Forum at Sauhegan High School, we hope to see you all at the game and at homecoming.
Have you bought your t-shirt yet?
This year we have a new principal, Bill Hagen, and we're very happy to have him.
Emma and I got the opportunity to sit down and interview Bill to get to know him a little better.
Here's what he had to say.
So my name is Bill Hagen, and I am the interim principal at Sauhegan High School this year. Generally speaking, it's oversight of the operation of the schoolhouse, and that under that umbrella are lots of things from curriculum, instruction, supervision of teachers, to the safe operation of the building, student and staff safety. There isn't anything that goes on at the school that isn't in some way part of my responsibility to oversee. I meet with my leadership people. I like to get out of the office and get into the building, walk into some classrooms, see what's going on in the classroom. As we progress into the school year, I'll be doing observations in the classroom with teachers. I came out of retirement, and the big reason was because it was Sauhegan High School. I knew a little bit about Sauhegan High School, having worked at Amherst Middle School as principal for a few years, many years back. But also working as a high school principal, I knew of Sauhegan as a pretty special place. And so I just saw it as a professional opportunity for me, and so I jumped on it. It's different from other high schools, but that it is very prevalent here. The student-teacher relationship, that is what I believe, probably the top core value that I feel when I came into this building, that was important to both students and to teachers, that relationship be a priority, and it certainly is. It's very visible to me. It was from day one, walking in the building and beginning to talk to both students and teachers about that. Outside of school, I've been married for I think 38 years or 39 years now. I've got 3 grown women for daughters, 4 grandchildren. One of my big passions is fishing. I've become really passionate about getting out in the water, both in the fresh water and the salt water. I love that a lot. I've always been fairly athletic in my as I've grown up, try to stay in good shape. I've competed in marathons and triathlons and done all this stuff, and that was a passion for a little while. Yeah, and I like to stay busy. Doing just about anything. I think to the students, I'd like to say, and I said this a little bit to seniors, your 4 years at the high school and at Sauhegan High School are going to be one of the important parts of your life, and you should really take full advantage of all the opportunities that you can. Get involved in things, get involved in student life, try different things. Meet different people that you might not know. Stretch yourself and go out there and talk to different people and get a feel for different people. 4 years goes by very fast. When you're a freshman, it might not feel that way, but by the time you're a senior and you're in the middle of your year, you're gonna look back and say, wow, that was fast. So I hope that when you look back, you can always say as a graduating senior that I took full advantage of everything that Sauhegan had to offer me.
Thanks, Bill, and welcome to Sauhegan. Tomorrow, the soccer team will be selling mums between 4 to 6 in the senior parking lot. They're $25 and they come in a huge basket and in a variety of colors. Contact any soccer players if you're interested, and make sure to swing by Sauhegan.
Before we leave, juniors and seniors, remember to sign up for your college visits. And that's all for this week, Sabers.
We'll see you next week with some more news.